Thank you so much, Calaris. I'm very excited to be bringing you guys this match. It's gonna be a tough one for our German Terran player.
That's one way to say it. Serral is just incredible, and HeRoMaRinE is going to be the massive underdog. Let's get started here with map number 1. We're going to be playing on Winter's Gates, starting in the top left-hand side of the map, playing as the Blue Zerg. He comes from Finland. It is Ence's Serral.
The reigning world champion, the #1 Starcraft 2 player on planet Earth. His opponent in the southeast, the red Terran player from Germany. He is HeRoMaRinE.
Big game, bigger place. I like it.
Like all heroes and supervillains, Serral has been that unstoppable force. Many have tried, many have failed. The only kryptonite we've been able to find has been in the mind and the hands of a young Zerg named Raynor, but no one else has really been able to contest the grip that Serral has had on the foreign StarCraft scene, on the Korean StarCraft scene, BlizzCon, GSL versus the world. Whatever it is, Serral has been one of, if not the most feared opponents in StarCraft ever. The way that players talk about him in interviews, when you know that you have to go up against him, sometimes you'd be like, well, yeah, I mean, he's better than me or whatever. But people legitimately, they express feelings of no hope, despair almost, when they see that they have to go against this titan of StarCraft.
But you know what? In WCS summer, over in Ukraine, when Time faced Serral, they had a very, very competitive series. So I don't want to say, there is a blueprint out there on how to play against Serral, but it definitely showed that it is possible for a Terran to put up a good fight against him. And HeRoMaRinE, he's been playing out of his mind here. In a lot of these WCS tournaments, he did very well, but this time he really outdid himself. I feel like with that series yesterday against Showtime, which was incredible. And he definitely deserves his spot here in the semifinals, but it's going to take no less than his absolute best here for him to be able to be competitive against Serral, who sent some links across the map that SCV is going to be saved. And that's barely going to delay the commencer. Not bad.
Yeah, not by too much, thankfully, for HeRoMaRinE. Serral has been one of those players that has opted for the fast pneumaticized carapace. In basically every game that we watched in the last season of Challenger, especially towards the end when the new patch came in, we only played the final day of Challenger for both sides with the new patch. And he's been going for that Overlord speed. It's one of those things that he just wants to make sure he always knows what's going on. I think particularly, I'm going to continue to stress this. I've said it all weekend, but the strength of Terran versus Zerg is the variety. It's all the different types of strategies that you can pull out. The battle cruiser rush, speed banshees, just really greedy command. So we saw some Terran players go for some very greedy builds into bio from some Zergs who were maybe trying to play a little more defensively, and they didn't put quite as much into that droning since they were expecting an attack to come out of Terran. So Serral wants to be 100% aware of everything that is going on.
And not just in the start, even after that, even looking past the initial opener, there are still transitions that you can make that sometimes could surprise the opponent. By opening with pneumatized carapace, you definitely are going to be ultra consistent here with that scouting. And don't even get me started on those Formula 1 driver overseers.
No, those bad boys, they fly fast. I don't know if there's a speed limit in the skies over here in Montreal, but if there is one, the Overlords and the Overseers especially are breaking them. This one is going to come in for follow-up. Scott does get blown up. Sees that Stim is on the way. We have had quite a few Terran players cancel their Stim this weekend, but it does not look like that's something HeRoMaRinE will do. He's never really been the guy to do plays quite that tricky. He usually just relies on really good macro and big pushes. Gabe is, well, I mean, the word is there, right? Big Gabe, big pushes, big armies, big attacks. That's how he likes to play the game. And another Overlord is going to come by. Serral just wants to double plus check. He's like, now that I see there's extra barracks, now I know nothing really weird is happening. Some Hellions trying to poke that third base, but nothing they shall find. A little bit of a supply block, though, for what he's done, right? He's stuck at 73. Hasn't started an Overlord yet, actually. So I'm a little bit disconcerted.
And still to this point. Okay, starts one. It's going to be probably a lot more than one, He's going to be floating quite a few minerals there.
See,
are you going to keep updating us on this?
Even gods build 4 Overlords at a time sometimes, okay? my
before
favorite.
the 6 minutes.
Starcraft is that difficult of a game. Oh, man.
There you go.
Ay.
You started this.
I might have lost that one, too. I can count. Learn to count with Nathanius and Serral. 2 evolution chambers on the way, so the upgrades are going to be coming in for Serral. It's quite nice. He has a good idea of what's going to be coming at him this game. It's going to be that bio, and honestly, one of the reasons why a lot of people talked about mech builds being a weakness of some of these Titanic Zergs in the foreign scene, for me, Todd, it has a lot to do with their harass, with the counterattacks. Bio builds are way more susceptible to those run-bys and counterattacks than the slower mech strategies. The Zerglings, we've seen what Serral can do to get inside those bases, those Baneling busts, the worker harass, blowing up mineral lines, blowing up the bio from the flanks, and even some drop play in the late game. So those are all of the things that it makes me concerned when I see a Terran player going bio against Serral. Not that bio is bad, but mostly Serral is going to punish you if you're on a parade push. If you're trying to rally out big waves of, if you're trying to rally out like a chain of units and it's going by slowly, you don't have a big core of units left behind, he's going to throw 8 Banelings into your wall and get lings all over your production, all over your SCVs. So you really need to be on top of absolutely all facets of not only your offense, but your defense. And as we have HeRoMaRinE getting ready to make his first push out, he's got 1-1 completing. I think we've got a siege tank or 2 in there, medevacs, and stimmed Marines with combat shields. So hasn't forgotten his upgrades. He's actually trying to make this push as fast as possible. So he actually leaves before the medevacs, since those bad boys can boost over. And you talked about the Ferrari Overseer. Well, there she is, scouting out the main.
Did you see how HeRoMaRinE actually left some Hellions around the third base with some of the Reapers there? Okay, HeRoMaRinE is trying to force those Banelings to roll in there so we can get rid of them with the tanks, but the medevacs weren't with the bio. So everything on the ground is going to get wiped out. Those tanks are going to get destroyed as well with the Zerglings that were there. That was a little weird.
It was nice to have the 1-1 lead for that fight, but unfortunately there was no target fire onto the tanks. They did not shoot the Banelings, and they were able to connect with most of the Marines. So 2 empty medevacs are going to boost over towards the next move out. But this is where I start to get a little bit nervous already, Todd, because Serral has defended the first attack effortlessly, you could say, in these little pushes, these little pokes and prods forward. Not accomplishing too much just yet. I do like what you pointed out, though, leaving the Hellions behind. I mean, turn them into Hellbats at this point, may as well. But leave those units there. You have to have something to defend. I love that rally point as well. He's rallying to the wall in his natural expansion so that if a run-by were to hit, he's not rallying out his Marines in like a parade push style. That Heart of the Swarm S play, you just can't get away with that against Serral.
HeRoMaRinE is trying to push back the Crapier in the center of the map, but Serral is doing a very good job of kind of camping that location with the Queens, and now sent Banelings in. And we see that force ready to counterattack as well on the top right-hand side. Sensor Tower on the way. I like this a lot. You mentioned the counterattacks with Lings and Banes. That can do a lot. That's going to help a lot here with spotting this coming.
No, that's absolutely fantastic decision. I mean, sensor towers have also been like a theme this year for Terrans. We finally learned how to use them, just like it took us a couple of years to learn to use Vikings. But these Marines get caught. Oh no, Banelings able to blow up the majority of that force. You have to constantly be aware of everything. Serral is not going to miss an opportunity to punish any mistakes from HeRoMaRinE. He's got his adrenal glands coming in, his 2-2 upgrades, Ultralisk Cavern. HeRoMaRinE is now trying to get that 4th base up. Serral's Overseer sees it. He knows exactly what is happening in this game. And I'm not going to lie, Todd. If you're Serral in this position, you kind of want HeRoMaRinE to try and make another little push out before everything gets situated, because then you have the opportunity to try and counterattack and shut down that 4th.
Yeah.
That really is the linchpin of the economy for a Terran, getting that 4th at this phase of the game. Now, since there's no creep over there, because HeRoMaRinE's been clearing it, it won't be easy for Serral to make that move, but it is certainly a big target before it turns into a planetary fortress.
And HeRoMaRinE is very Marine heavy, actually, which against Ultras is very difficult for that to be pulled off, but he's finally going to more Maulders here. We see 4 going up at the time or being produced in the production tab. Concussive shells now being made as well, so he's fully expecting that Ultralist transition that, all that will be coming here all the time.
Yeah, using the Queens as the anti-air there is able to grab one of those medevacs.
Looking at the minimap scares me, by the way. Like, Serral is progressing very, very quickly.
He expands on opposite corners of the map at a time. So if you want to hit one base, it's going to be really hard to hit the other one. Pulling the army around is going to be quite tricky. And if he loses one base, it's kind of, it's the head of the Hydra. There's another one that's going to be able to pop up and your army won't be able to get there quite as fast. We did see a Reaper throw a grenade in the mid-game, so how about that? But unfortunately, that one does go down as well. These Marines are trying to clear out some of the creep, but that's really all he's been trading these units for right now, Todd. He hasn't been able to get to any of Serral's bases. He hasn't been able to get over to those drone lines. And Serral was just at 90 workers. He's a rich boy. I mean, outside of all the prize money he's won in tournaments that also make him wealthy. He's rich in this game,
He's rich in-game and outside of it, apparently.
That's what happens when you win everything. Must feel nice.
HeRoMaRinE has a massive army, 123 against 104 right now. If he can get some good trades against some of those banelings, he might be able to do a big push himself. Serral maybe overextending here, stepping off creep. He's going to go and attack into HeRoMaRinE. A lot of these forces have been cleaned up pretty quickly, but there is a planetary fortress behind this. Are there enough banelings on the other sides?
The Widow Mines are not getting the miracle connections that they need. A little bit of his force in the northeast will survive, so Serral's actually going to pull all of his units back up there, but he's still got 60-plus Zerglings, up to 100 again now.
Yeah.
And we've seen actually a good amount of the Zerg players doing this, just really cranking out the Lings in crazy numbers to cover the maps in these situations, especially with that creep spread that you were talking about as he's eating the map. This hatchery is gonna get killed, so good play there by HeRoMaRinE. He is trying to play a little bit of whack-a-mole with the bases, but Serral's army continues to grow in strength as he adds more Ultralisks. But as long as HeRoMaRinE can continue to expand, that's going to be the big deciding factor in this game. That fourth base, he has built 2 command centers next to it, which makes it quite hard for these melee units to even get close to the planetary fortress. It's not something we talk about a whole lot, but Ultras are going to be fighting off creep here against this bio, but there finally he gets an opportunity to do a little bit of a run by those Widow Mines. Do not burrow. SCVs are going to be forfeit. Todd Serral is always going to find a way to get the backstab going during a big fight.
Yeah, he was so patient with this, never really tried too early to go for this, and now when he finally does go for it, busts down, or just knocks the door down, really.
Yeah, just
goes into that natural, kills 20 SCVs. Devastating
attack there by Serral. And HeRoMaRinE gonna have a little bit of a harder time getting back up to that max supply.
Is that thing really gonna get the eBay, by the way? Like, this is...
Well, his 3-3 is done, so yeah. He's gonna be going over towards his base. Now, I did say this, I mean, the 2 orbitals is a pretty thick base he's got here. So the choke point, the position for HeRoMaRinE to fight is fantastic. The Ultras had a hard time getting to those positions where they could actually hit the planetary. Yeah, but he's now repairing. The Banelings are coming in now, too. They're going to roll through. The orbitals are on fire. Planetary is destroyed. And this is looking, it's just looking grim for HeRoMaRinE. He hasn't been able to do economic damage to Serral. And even though Serral's supply goes down, he's got 95 drones. That money, he's making it rain Zerglings in this game, Todd.
He lost all of the Ultras that he had, I think.
Oh, yeah, don't forget. Nidus. He's going to be
He's really trying to keep HeRoMaRinE back at home while he keeps on saturating new bases out on the map. Mules not going to be meant to stay much longer in this world. HeRoMaRine's going for the counterattack. Yeah, this might ignite some sort of weird base trade, but Serral does have forces back at home as well.
It is really hard to try and go for a base trade into a Zerg player that has this many Banelings with that creep spread. Pushing onto creep is always a risk. Liberators do help trim the fat a bit, though, with the Marauders up front. So HeRoMaRiNE's last attempt to try and bring this game back is making some progress. He's getting over to that hatchery on the west side, the original 4th base. The drones here, I'd like to see Serral trying to use that burrow.
Hey, look at the army supply. 120 to 64. Is HeRoMaRiNE really doing this? He's got so much left over right now. Serral maybe got a little bit overeager. Maybe he had a few too many drones as well, that his army wasn't nearly as big.
I'm feeling the hype with you, Todd, but I'd just like to clarify, 26 of that army supply is medevac, so he's got a little bit over. The Liberators are definitely a really nice component of this.
Yes.
I literally cannot argue that, but these Ultras and Banelings are still going to be really strong. HeRoMaRiNE took a lot of economic damage behind this, and if he doesn't kill Serral soon, it's only going to get worse. He gets a sweet connection off creep with one of those Banelings, and Serral, in a situation where I think this might be a bit of an overextension, Todd, he definitely has an economic enough lead that I don't think he needs to take any fights off creep.
Yeah, I think he was getting picked apart here and kind of lost patience, tried to engage into a bigger force than he would have liked it to be. And now HeRoMaRiNE's the one going on the offensive. 103 army supply to 37. Serral still scrambling, trying to regroup, trying to remake a few more forces to re-engage into this, but he's going to be forced to fight now. And there are just only so many Banelings there.
The big problem is he lost all of the queens fighting the Liberators. See, he doesn't actually have any way to inject and get larva. So even with all those resources that he has, he actually can't build that many units. The Corruptors are going to come out to try and help deal with the Liberators, but what he needs are, well, he just needs to get back up that crazy number of Zerglings and Banelings that he had. But in this weird little world that we're in now, if you're trying to trickle out Zerglings when every Marine has 2 medevacs, I don't know what kind of weird economy, and we've got this type of health care for these Marines and Marauders, but they are going to be overhealed. That was the thing in this game.
Both of them are barely mining now. That's about to change here for HeRoMaRinE, who lands a ton of mules on that base. I guess he can fly his command centers to new bases as well. That's going to be a big advantage he's going to have. But Serral is mostly mining on that bottom left-hand side base. That's about it. And that's not even full saturation there.
He did have drones from the northeast base that he burrowed, so he can send them over to the top side and get that base saturated again very quickly. I do think one of the biggest problems is he hasn't rebuilt the queens. Our observer is pointing out to us the larva is only coming off all the hatches. He does have a good number of hatcheries, so he can spend his money. But the anti-air, weirdly enough, becomes a factor again. These medevacs have done a great job. If the banelings don't connect, there's a ton of healing for all of these forces. And those ultralisks, there's not enough to actually punch through. There's so many Marauders with this army. Now, HeRoMaRinE does have a significantly worse economy. Those mules, as you pointed out, are all he's been leaning on.
Yeah, HeRoMaRinE is probably kicking himself. He made this many medivacs there, because with actually more bio, might have been able to finish the game here maybe already, but the mistakes one host in the production tab.
See?
Usually Zerg wins, though, when they make this one, but right now...
An iconic pop song pops into my head, Johan. Nobody's perfect. I won't do the rest of it.
Keep going.
I won't do the rest of it. I'll spare you.
All right, Serral's trying to regroup, trying to crank out 2 more Ultralisks and some more Zerglings before he re-engages there. Not that many buildings. I think it's about 4. And HeRoMaRinE is so Marauder heavy as well. He can tank a lot of these shots. The Ultra is going to go down. HeRoMaRinE, has he done it here?
It's been extremely close the whole way through. He's only got 18 Zerglings on the map with those 2 Ultras. Actually, one of them gets born straight in front of the Marauders and gets blasted to smithereens.
Born into battle.
Born into battle, but when you're born into a battle that you're not fighting in, that definitely hurts. And the other downside of no queens in this scenario, I understand that it's very economically limited, but he also doesn't have transfuses for those Ultralisks. So all the damage that this army's been taking has been more or less permanent. And as long as HeRoMaRinE keeps dropping those mules, well, all he needs to do is build Marines.
How is Serral still alive? This is nuts. Like, he's always getting just barely enough to survive this whole time. Any other Zerg would have died, I don't know, like 10 minutes ago, 5 minutes ago at least. Like, it felt like Serral was in so much trouble, but somehow he keeps on squeezing out units. He keeps on saturating bases. He's got the one on the top right-hand side. If HeRoMaRinE knew, he could just even send a couple units there to start killing those drones.
Okay. That chunky boy is going to get away. I was going to say, that's almost, you kind of want to cancel that one if you think it's going to get popped in front of you.
Does HeRoMaRinE know about the top right-hand side base?
No. His Marauders in a world of hurt, though. He's also going to come down the ramp. And, I mean, if the medevacs aren't here, then the damage can be pretty good. But the medevacs all have a decent bit of energy. Some of them are starting to finally run out, but that's why we said 2 medevacs for Marine earlier on. And that's where it hurts, right? He can't transfuse that Ultralisk. So without any ability to heal that, it's just going to be getting into the next fight. Would be a little bit trickier. Still trying to bring those counterattacks, though, is Serral. Do love to see that. HeRoMaRinE secures the base in the southwest corner. Those Banelings do get some good detonations onto the Marines, though. And if the Corruptors can pick off a few more of these medevacs. The thing is, he had so many medevacs, he's been slowly bleeding them out, and it's been okay because of how many he had. But now it's starting to get to the point where he's not going to be able to afford to build medevacs and that bio. We see the mules dropping. He's actually trying to rebuild 5 SCVs at a time. He's like, look, I need to actually saturate some of these bases because I also need scans. My opponent has a burrow.
How many SCVs have died? Because he's still making them 5x5, but oh my god, the amount of units that have died this game, and building 600 Zerglings fell, 235 Marines, 81 SCVs, and guess what? He's not done with it too. Still all over the map with those very mobile Zerglings, still looking to try and kill more SCVs. HeRoMaRinE still doesn't know about the top right-hand side base.
Nope. That is unfortunate. Lots of money coming in for Serral there.
And still is converging towards the bottom left-hand side of the map now. I think he knows that if he snipes this base, even if he trades that would be such a good spot for him to be in, and he would be mining a lot more than HeRoMaRinE.
I'd also like to bring our attention back to something else that's also terrifying. If Serral is able to to stabilize and situate himself, I think he still has the Nidus network, and he has vision in the main, so he can do still all sorts of attacks. Okay, he did lose the Nidus, but, well, maybe he doesn't need it. He's gotten his army big enough. Again, the Banelings have crashed into the Marines. That southwest expansion for HeRoMaRinE is under a lot of pressure. The Marauders do not have that support of all of those medevacs anymore. Zerglings and Banelings crushing through. And despite everything, HeRoMaRinE took a huge stand in this first game against the Titan. That is Serral, but it may not have been enough. He's going to call down a few mules on a command center that cannot even land because there's a Zergling, and GG is called. Serral takes game number 1. Attempting to pull it back from the clutches of defeat was HeRoMaRinE, but it simply wasn't enough, Todd.
This is crazy. He just will not die. He goes across the map, tries to deal damage, loses basically his entire army, and behind this, he just feels like he doesn't have enough. You look at the numbers, I'm down here looking at that supply. I know there was a lot of medivacs, but that means that his bio was getting the proper support that it needed. And still, this is not enough. Every single time he holds with the last few units that he has, makes exactly just enough Banelings that would be barely enough for him to hold on. He holds on for long enough to resaturate a few bases, and then it becomes a new game. Once he can re-kick that economy back up, he comes back in a game in which I thought he was completely out of it.
The decision-making, though, I can't even imagine. And I'm sure there's some, 200 IQ Zergs. I'm sure Katz is already writing a book about it, but I'm like, not rebuilding the Queens in that situation, just saying, look, I just need to trickle out as many units as I can, not focus on rebuilding the economy, maybe try to just get this one base in the Northeast again once I had money for that. But he just focused entirely on using all those expansions that he had to rebuild those Lings, those Banes, and he built just enough Corruptors to trim the fat on those medevacs, because that was the real issue for him. He was putting out like 20 or 30 Lings to try and kill like maybe 6 Marauders and 6 Marines, but when every single one of those units has a medevac on it, and HeRoMaRinE is microing, which, as we've seen, he's quite good at micro, it becomes a problem. But in a clutch crisis situation, the world champion prevailed. Let's see if he can keep it up as we move to Acropolis for map number 2. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the World Championship Series in the Northwest. Spawning as the Blue Zerg player, he is Serral! And his opponent in the bottom right, the German Terran, standing up against the monster he has to encounter. He is HeRoMaRinE!
HeRoMaRinE played out of his mind in that last game. That was incredible. All of these pushes, the way he was holding on his saddle map. Because at first, it really looked like he wasn't able to really shut down that creep spread in the middle of the map. But eventually he got to the right composition. He was fighting well against these Ultralisks. He was kiting really well, but it's just so hard to finish off somebody like Serral. And again, I really feel like maybe it came down also to not being able to see that base on the top right-hand side, because one single medivac there with just 8 Marines, I think would have done a ton of damage. Yeah, exactly. But I mean, you have to think of these things. And credit to Serral for really keeping HeRoMaRinE busy with those Zergling run-bys, by the way. This is really what helped him slowly claw his way back into that game.
And I like what you mentioned as well. He didn't try to force it early on. He was very patient. The first time that he went for the run by was the perfect moment.
Yeah.
He didn't go in until HeRoMaRinE was pulling all of his units out of his base, because originally, I love what HeRoMaRinE did. He had the tank and the Hellions at the 3rd, and he rallied the barracks to the supply depot in the natural in such a way that those Marines actually blocked it off. So they would at least be able to push the Lings away. And then the moment that he decided to take everything but the kitchen sink, Zerglings spilled into the natural, and things just started to fall apart for our Terran player.
It's crazy. You just wait for something that just doesn't come, and eventually you're like, all right, he's not doing a run-by. So you move out, and then boom.
Yep.
Here is the flood into the natural, which did a ton of damage. I think that was about 20 SCVs that he lost to that first big one.
Surprise, Terran, brother. Yeah, that's tough. And that is the biggest strength, I think, of Serral and Raynor. When I look at both of them versus Terran, you see the same thing from both of them every single game. And it's one of those things that's given, I think, us some also magical moments from players like Scarlet, and she's maybe a little bit, well, she's less consistent in that way, but the top Zergs, they all have, you can see that trend, that pattern when it comes to how they handle the Terran players moving out, and they're always confident with it. You never feel a sense of hesitation, like, can I afford to throw these things in here?
Yeah.
Can I afford to just try and throw 6 banelings into that mineral line? No, it's always very decisive, very powerful attacks that they're
They just have like a higher understanding of the game, it feels like. Like Serral in particular is an excellent off-race player. Like his Terran actually won a tournament, I believe, in Finland. It was.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He got so bored of winning the Finnish national championships, he did it as Terran and won anyway.
Not bad.
And then everyone was like, wow, I can't believe all these battlecruiser builds came out of nowhere. Actually, Serral got bored and made us all a gift. That's the real truth. Okay, guys? He's that powerful. He's that powerful.
Viking opener here from HeRoMaRinE to try and deal with some of these pneumatized carapace, Overlord scouting his entire base, and the fusion core will be dropped down around the natural. He's probably hoping, like, please, nothing flies there so I can surprise him.
There's nothing you can hide from Serral. Like, he is the...
he's got the eagle eye.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's like being in a horror movie, except the serial killer always finds you and wins, you know? That's what it's like. You can't
so, like,
hide
about every horror movie, then?
Some of them have some pretty bad forced endings. I don't know.
Yeah,
I guess that's fair. That's fair to say. Nothing's going to slip by him. No matter what you try to put around anywhere, he's going to check. He's even had his overlords like flying around the top side of the map. He's like, he checked the bottom left. He's like, oh, do you have a hidden fusion core somewhere? Well, I know you've got one in your natural, but I'm just going to make sure there's nothing else hiding anywhere else. Like he's just so meticulous. And I noticed this in Challenger as well. He got overlord speed before Zergling speed. He really prioritizes having the information. And I don't know that he would say it's like the most efficient. A lot of Zerg players would be like, how efficient is it to do that? But when you're Serral, the only way that you could possibly lose is if someone surprised you. And, well, he's never surprised.
Definitely isn't. He's been putting in all that work here to check everything. Queen's having a little bit of a trampoline party here. Is that one Reaper? But HeRoMaRinE is trying to delay the creep spread here around the third base as well as he can, which is very important. Eventually, if he pushes down the avenue and the creep is not super deep on the map, it would be ideal for him. Get back in position, Queens. Can't be letting that happen.
I mean, the Viking is really nice to have around the map. I think you might run into another Overlord here. Battlecruiser. This is interesting as well. Battlecruiser into this mech strategy. We've seen a lot of it this weekend. We've seen a lot of it this year, honestly. It's really good for so many reasons that I've already gone into a million times. But I'm going to go into them one more time, Todd, in case anybody's new today. That BC has the ability to just teleport inside of the enemy's base and try to get some damage done. Now, this time we're going to see that battlecruiser used in conjunction with the Hellions. The only reason I don't like it, I'm not sure if you already saw that there were roaches on the field, but those Hellions in the BC, they're not going to be able to do a whole lot with that on the map. The Zerglings are going to push these Hellions away. Would have liked to see the BC go for maybe the main of the natural. A lot of Terran players, you still want to be a bit conservative at times because that Spire, if the Zerg player goes for the Spire quickly, you are going to be in trouble. We saw plenty of BCs die in the first moments, and if you lose that first battlecruiser, it's like trying to push a giant boulder off a cliff. You get a couple good shoves in, you're like, oh no, actually I'm just going to stop. And then try to get it rolling later. It doesn't happen, Todd. You're going to gas yourself, okay? You got to put all of it in. You need to keep the momentum throughout the game. So 2 BC is what we're going to have soon. And I do wonder if Serral's going to go for one of those Corruptor, Ravager, Roach attacks where you try to just kill the Terran since they can't usually defend that well. 2 counterattacks if the BCs get shut down. But,
he already has a lot of Queens, but they're not nearly as mobile, obviously. And Serral already has quite a bit of gas to work with, so he really gets to choose from there. Well, if he wants to do something like that, make a whole bunch of Corruptors.
Yep, and the Spire is finishing up right now. He does have some Roaches on the field. I believe Roach Speed is even done too. So the option is there. We've seen some Zergs do it. I don't think that Serral will do it in this game, but it wouldn't be the first time that someone tried to march all their Queens across the map with some Ravagers and Corruptors.
7 Corruptors. On the way, 8.
Tell you what, Todd, can confirm this strategy can kill. There's a lot of Terran players that have died to this.
How do you know?
No names need to be put. I've seen
a friend told you.
Yeah. I heard from a friend that Cyclone Hellion is actually really bad against Queen Corruptor Ravager. And we've seen a few people die to that.
We'll see in a moment if your friend's right. Quite a few upgrades being added on for Serral. +1 melee.
I like the
+1 missile as well.
I like the infestation pit a lot, though. He's thinking late game wise. I think this is one of the downfalls of Stefano's strategy earlier today, where he didn't go for that tech very quickly. He was like, I'm going to make this attack, but just didn't really have the follow-up to it to try and do anything if it were to fail. And what? I find this highly curious. He's going to get the Nidus network in the Swarmhost. Now, I think that is the hardest counter in the history of hard counters to normal mech and sometimes to the Cyclone mech. But I actually don't know that this is the strongest thing that you can do versus battlecruisers, like battlecruiser Cyclone Hellion, mostly because this army composition is quite good at trying to kill those Nidus worms and deny this. However, as I say that, maybe he's afraid of some big attacks. He's starting to build siege tanks. Every siege tank on the map is like, this build gets better by like 2 or 3%.
Maybe the distance between the main and third base. See, like the first Nidus is towards the main base. What if he does the second one around the third base? It's going to be very hard for HeRoMaRinE to move back and forth and have enough tanks in both locations to really defend very well.
The first Nidus is always the most important when you do this strategy, because the swarm hosts, you kind of have to be in a mindset that you're prepared and ready for them. You don't know exactly where it's coming or what's going to be coming. Now, hearing the Nidus there and seeing that it wasn't in one of your bases, you should assume that it's swarm host. And the battle cruisers can kind of get to work on this. But if you get blindsided by an attack like this, not only are you going to lose stuff, but they can click on those factories and kill them. This is kind of why I like this, though. When you have Cyclone Hellion, you can kind of boldly just step out and say, all right, I'm going to kill that.
Yeah.
As a Zerg, it takes a lot of confidence.
Ooh,
to go. I
was thinking about it.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know that you want to jump on top of that army, but opportunities aplenty. I think
Caustic spray available here for this.
3 BCs against this many Corruptors. I don't think Serral can really try to force it here.
And Serral's really trying to make something happen. I love how HeRoMaRinE, by the way, reacted to the second Nidus as soon as he heard about the first one. Like I said, this is somewhat predictable. When you hear the first one around your main base, you know that the second one is going to be around the third base. So really delayed that second wave of locusts there.
Yeah, it's like whack-a-mole, except instead of a mole coming out of the hole, it's Freddy Krueger. So you need to be really careful as these locust waves are going to drop down. Now, see, as those Hellions go down, you can kill the missile turrets, but the Swarm Host DPS is still really strong. So you have to send your units over there to stop them. Those factories getting down to yellow health, you're like, oh, yeah, not a big deal. But one misstep, all your add-ons are gone, your production gets blown up, and mech-based production, especially, not that cheap, Todd.
Yeah. Even though HeRoMaRiNE's handling this well, every single time I see a Zerg player creep spreading and being left undisturbed on his side of the map with 6 bases, I get really worried, because potential-wise, sky is the limit. And sky is probably where he's going to go here with Corruptors, Vipers, and then Broodlords later on. Against which, I don't know if HeRoMaRiNE will be ready, because he's kind of stuck on 4 bases here for the longest time.
Yep. Interesting. I mean, okay, so the big thing, right? He wants to get the Greater Spire out. Turn some of those Corruptors into Broodlords. Broodlords, I think once you get like 7 or 8 of them, Cyclones, they just kind of suck. They don't really have the firepower to punch through that many waves of Locusts without a ton of supporting units like Thor's or the battle cruisers in this instance. But he does get fungal growth, and that means the battle cruisers could not teleport away, so kills one of them. Now this point becomes even more important, Todd. The battle cruisers are really the only anti-Broodlord tech that he has. So if those BCs get picked off, the Cyclone Hellion, they're not pushing through Roach Ravager to get to Broodlords. Not in a million years.
HeRoMaRiNE's actually moving out now. He's been defending for most of the game. He's now maxed out. He's got some more upgrades on the way as well. Almost engaging at the edge of the creep here. Bailing's trying to roll in there. HeRoMaRiNE trying to negate that as much as he can. He does a very good job of that, actually. Serral with 102 army supply against the 106 of HeRoMaRiNE. And Locusts were just used around his main base. That means that's going to take a long time for those to reload. Broodlords only now start morphing. HeRoMaRiNE's window here is going to be very short for him to make this siege work.
As soon as those 10 Broodlords finish, this army is going to get absolutely obliterated. He will have to go home. Let's see if he can get some significant damage done. The Infestors are still around. There's just those 2 battle cruisers that are really going to be the anti-air. The lock-on range for the Cyclone is 7. The Broodlord's attack range is 10. It is very hard to get up close with those. And now the Swarmo's coming in with the flank. That cooldown finally off. And what he wants to do is just get a fungal, secure the kill. There's not really a lot of Corruptors, but I love that. Using the Corrosive Bile in tandem. So 1 BC will live to tell the story of the other capital ships that were destroyed. But This is a really scary position to be put in. HeRoMaRinE has been here before in this tournament, though. Earlier in the... God, I can't remember which round it was. We had him on the main stage. If you remember, he had that game where he had to make this big transition where he built 5 Thors at a time. That is an army that can deal with tons of Broodlords. We watched him blow to smithereens that part of the Zerg army. And in my opinion, it is the right call for him to go for. I'd love to see the starport that he had, the fusion core, building the battlecruisers. I'd love to see him get advanced ballistics if he hasn't already squeezed it in without me noticing. But in this stage of the game, you kind of want to make that hard transition over towards Thors with Liberators and still have that Hellion support, because simply put, unless you're going to invest into big battlecruiser, which he's clearly shown he's not, the Thors are your only unit that can deal with this. So the Liberators can keep the infestors away with neural parasites.
Yeah.
And honestly, Liberators just kind of kill everything.
I guess the mobility of his army as well, obviously, right? Like the Cyclones and Hellions are pretty fast.
But one
he's in 2 locations right now, trying to make stuff happen. That one battlecruiser, he's gonna fall, the last of its kind so far in this game. And HeRoMaRinE is looking to try and capitalize on Serral's army being at the top for a moment. With an attack here in the center. Ooh, we get some good lock-ons here.
He needs to be careful chasing those, but he gets bungled again. And this is what I was saying, Todd. This army, it's just not stocky enough to... You can't actually fight head-to-head at all with Hellion Cyclone. It's all about picking off, trying to grab those picks. But once you start getting bungled, things get ugly. There is the Nidus next to that. Oh, goodness gracious. That one in the main. Well, here's another weakness of Thor's, Todd. Another reason why Liberator transition with this is also really important. If he... Well, thank God they all finished at the perfect time.
Seems like a real weakness, yeah.
Right when the Nidus finishes, so do 3 Thors. I'm like, okay, that's one way to deal with it. You got me. You got me.
Just come on in. See yourself in.
Guys, there's nobody here. 3 giant Pacific Rim mechs are like, sup?
Is there like a max amount of Thors that you want to get,
10.
or like composition-wise? Because
10.
right now it feels like HeRoMaRinE went crazy on the Thor production.
12 Thors is enough, but they are extremely susceptible to all of the other units that aren't the Broodlords. And that is why usually you want to complement them with Liberators. 12 Thors is, there's 6 supply each.
Yeah.
Those things are absolutely huge.
HeRoMaRinE moves out immediately. Serral with a counter-attack, juggling run by here on that base. And just kind of wrecking everything on the other side of the map with those super upgraded links. 3-3 about to finish here for HeRoMaRinE. This is his timing here.
Is there neural parasite? No. Okay, well...
But there is fungal.
If they can just fight the Broodlords head-to-head, they can actually kill a lot of
Yeah, but look at the position. The Broodlords above here. That one area is just so hard for the Thors to reach them. There's so many fungals available. HeRoMaRinE is going to have to get out of here, I think.
I'm slightly concerned about what the other supporting units... Okay, there's Neural Parasite. There we go. So he's going to be able to grab some of the Thors. That's really the big weakness of this when you don't have Liberators to cover your Thors. And then, Thors do a lot of damage versus air and ground, so they're quite good at helping to pick those off. But he does trade out against a good number of the Broodlords. Thors do an incredible job at killing the units that they are supposed to kill, whether it's in that explosive payload. But really, the counterattacks are the thing that's making me not like this. I like HeRoMaRiNE's army. What I don't like is the amount of damage that Serral is able to inflict on the backside of that. He didn't have the wall by that third base, and now the natural being ravaged as well. Serral, he's a rich boy, Todd, once again.
Yeah. He's got a lot of gas to work with in particular. Like I said, Zerg on 6 bases is always going to be super scary with the amount of gas that they're mining. He's going into a lot more infestors, corruptors as well. We're going to see more Niduses here being used. Really using the full mobility here that Niduses can provide for him to kind of be everywhere. Keep HeRoMaRinE back at home, and then when he finally does move out, those Broodlords are ready for the defense. It's been such active and dynamic games as well. They've both been everywhere, harassing one another. Infestors, those are very expensive gas-wise. You can't be losing them like this.
Losing 3 infestors is pretty bad. Thankfully, my good friend Johan Merlo mentioned to me, Serral has a lot of gas, so it's not the end of the world for him as some more Hellions are going to come in to harass. But I really would like to have seen an attempt to transition into getting some Liberators with this. Ranged Liberators are the best thing for keeping those infestors off your Thors. Siege tanks can do the job, but siege tanks also have this thing called friendly fire, where they will blow your Thors up for the Zerg if they aren't target fired onto the infestors. And Serral, it's just, HeRoMaRiNE scrambling to try and get this super army to make a ginormous push with, and Serral just does not stop hitting, harassing, and poking every which way.
Did he not see that Nidus in his main base? Because this time, I don't think there's anything ready around.
There's no welcoming party of Thor's finishing to kill the Nidus this time if he does want to unload it in there. But the thing is,
He's just going for the offensive himself.
He's going to get neural parasited to death.
Ooh, there is not much against these Vikings here. Directly there. Okay, he's regrouped with the Queens. He has got Spores, and the Infestor is always going to be super scary here.
It's a very, very terrifying engagement to try and go for. The siege tanks have to keep the Infestors away.
Can HeRoMaRinE do this?
I think it's possible if the Infestors come a little bit too close. You just want to make sure that the Thors are A, pulling the aggro from those siege tanks' friendly fire, and B, do not get your Infestors in range of the tanks. If he can get an engagement with the Thors under the Broodlords, which he might actually be able to pull off, as long as he doesn't get neural parasited, those Thors have the firepower to deal with a ton of the Broodlords. Maybe even a Blinding Club from Serral could do the trick, but this is one of those incredibly chunky armies that the Terran player is able to build. Thors are incredible versus Broodlords. He has the Hellbats to support. Serral is wisely retreating. He knows that if he gets caught and those Infestors get blown up, he is going to lose. Actually, another really good tank shot onto the Infestors. He's continuing to make this aggression work. And there we go. Okay, so finally, if you know Parasites, he has to save those Thors, and he does. The Infestors get blown up. The Broodlords are starting to fall out of the sky. The infested Terrans and the Zerglings are trying to end this, though. Thors are starting to get hit by the friendly fire from the siege tanks, but I do believe most of those Broodlords are so close to getting picked off, Todd.
And transfusions are going to be used on some of those. Serral trying to hold on. He's kiting with Broodlords, bringing them back to safety. Those Thors, they took forever to finally, somehow go down hit points and get sniped. But 10 more Infestors on the way here for Serral, who spent a lot of his bank. They're about even in supply still. HeRoMaRinE is still a lot left over, and a fantastic production behind this is defending well enough back at home. Cheap weapons level 2 is going to finish.
Yeah, this is the hard part, though. You got to be careful when you make pushes like this into the Zerg. If it's not enough to kill them, the reinforcements are going to come out. A lot of the Hellions and Hellbats were killed. There goes my hero.
1 hit point.
Watch him as he goes, Todd.
It is natural habitat.
He killed a Spore Crawler for the Dominion.
And HeRoMaRinE, he actually, that was a very important base of Serral as well. Like one of his few bases with the most minerals that we're mining. So he's going to force Serral to remake that. At the same time, he's still expanding himself onto new bases.
Yeah.
Broodlords being remade, Vipers being added on. But HeRoMaRinE, it feels like he replenishes this mech army somewhat fast. Behind this, he definitely didn't miss a beat with the macro.
Yeah, the Thors are the backbone. Everything else is actually quite cheap when you think about like relative cost-wise to replace the Hellions. It's not that expensive. It's cheaper than adding Marauders if you were trying to do a late game switch with your bio or something along those lines. So 7 Thors is still a good amount, but you really need to be careful about what you're doing with those Hellbats and Hellions, because you need all the support that you can get for those Thors. Poke, prod, maybe send a few of them to transform, but losing all of these still makes me a little bit uncomfortable. Okay, you're getting Infestor energy for it now too, so that's not the worst thing. But I love the way HeRoMaRiNE's played this. Yeah. I am a Terran player who does not like to shut up about how much I love Thor-based armies versus Zerg. Thors versus Zerg, they 2-shot Hydras, Ravagers, 3-shot Queens, and mixed with everything else, they outrange the Broodlords. The biggest weakness for the Thor can be like lots of Ravager bile with fungal, just because they can't really split, but really it just comes down to the neural parasite. If you take over the Thors and then Broodlords just keep shooting them, because the Thors absolutely wrecked the Broodlords in those head-to-head fights, as we saw earlier, and HeRoMaRiNE's up in supply. He had an extremely powerful army.
I'm so impressed with HeRoMaRiNE. Already in the previous WCS event at Summer, he was able to beat Sortov and Laser before only falling to Raynor. But here, he's playing out of his mind. My favorite so far, my favorite series so far up to this point was HeRoMaRiNE against Showtime, but like this is competing with it, like such a good quality series so far. And both players really playing so well.
Serral has done what I would call the, I don't know the appropriate way that you're supposed to say this, but it's the screw Thor's response, where you build so many Broodlords that those Thors, even with Hellion support, cannot get into a position where they can all fire at once. 17 Broodlords. This is where having
It's raining broodlings.
Yeah, it's going to be a real. You have to be.
Oh my God.
You have to know you're going to win that fight going into it. This is that situation where you really would be like, if you were building Liberators to support, you'd use them almost for just anti-air because
136 army supply to 136, Nathaniel. Here we go again. HeRoMaRinE with a massive siege on the other side of the map. Roaches being added on, 3 more Thors in the production tab for HeRoMaRinE, who's about to max out such a massive army, and is still being attacked on the other side of the map by those Lynx, those pesky little Zerglings the whole time. Still cutting off some reinforcements.
That production you were just mentioning, the 3 Thors as well, that does represent 18 army supply that's not here fighting in this almost maxed out engagement, but so many Brood Lords shooting at once. Even though the Thors outrange them, there is just so much coming in at any given moment. He's almost one-shotting the Thors with the Broodlings, and just having the sheer numbers game, he's feeling confident to push in against these Thors. Not enough support, and no, so they're going to get caught on the tail end. I think this is a pretty easy neural parasite. Assimilation successful as Serral takes over half of the HeRoMaRiNE's remaining Thors.
And HeRoMaRinE is going to regroup on the other side of the map, but he's suffered great losses here. Still looking to try and expand here on the bottom side. Can't even really afford either a planetary or an orbital. And that's going to be a problem because Serral is relentless with the Zerglings yet again, finding the space. 48 walkers to 40 right now. Serral again, much like in the previous game, taking the top right-hand side, which is being left unscouted right now. And I mean, even if he scouted it, he doesn't have that many mobile units like his armies. I feel like 80% Thors right now.
Yep. And the thing is, when you build an army like this with the Thors, you need those flexible, fast support units. I do find it quite interesting. I'd love to pick HeRoMaRiNE's brain as to why he doesn't like Liberators in this situation at all.
Just wait until the series is done and do that.
Yeah. I mean, from a Terran perspective, as somebody who I actually like to play Mass Thors versus Zerg because I think it's quite strong for these reasons.
How about getting a Medivac and dropping 2 Thors exactly under the Broodlords so that the rest can get closer while those guys tank the damage and start targeting the Broodlords, especially if it's after they've shot a volley.
I think it's a bit risky.
Yeah.
I just think it's a bit risky about getting, like, if you get abducted or the Thor getting isolated there. Once you have enough Broodlords to start one-shotting things, that's when the game gets really weird. Because the Thors are really, really, really good. The biggest problem is just trying to zoning away the infestors, and the siege tanks did the job earlier, but the Broodlord count is getting so high that not only do obviously the Broodlings kill stuff, but
he's adding 2 more. And Serral is content, I guess, with his Broodlord counts. He's going to go up to 18 here in a second. He's got 9 infestors, 7 corruptors. I saw him add a couple more queens as well. He was down to 4, and I think he wants to have some transfusions to work with, just in case some of these Broodlords start being targeted and keep those alive. You want to keep the critical mass that you've amassed.
Oh my goodness. Is HeRoMaRinE going to build more Thors than me? Good God, what universe? How many is he at? Yes, he's got a chunk here. He's going up to 16 Thors. Oh my goodness. I feel like I'm watching Gumiho's stream again. I love it. It's still really hard to engage this. It does all come down to the neural parasites.
You see the interesting split from HeRoMaRinE. He's going to try to come in from the other side if his Serral pushes far enough. I think it's smart because, like, Thors in this small little alley here, they kind of would block off one another. So he's essentially hoping Serral will step off creep so that he can come in from the other side and start killing those guys. And obviously, like, this is a very strong army by Serral, but Broodlords are not very mobile. If he takes a terrible fight and loses everything at once, he's lost the game. He doesn't have a massive bank behind this, he will be in big trouble. So at minimum, he will trade very well. But for HeRoMaRinE, he's just mostly hoping that Serral makes a big mistake here with the move out and the positioning, in which case he could punish this army.
I like the amount of money HeRoMaRinE has. I see a weird universe where he actually builds more battle cruisers now that Serral's actually kind of out of gas and has all of these Broodlords tying up his supply. I would say in 99% of situations, like, Thors are just better than Broodlords when it comes to like being the backbone of an army, but we may be at the tipping point of like too many Broodlords with the Infestor support to break through. He's gonna throw a fungal onto these Thors, Neural Parasite onto them as well. Not able to get in range of the Infestors to clear them out, but the Broodlords are gonna get hit from those Thors flanking on the right side, and the Infestors are not actually over there to help deal with this, so the Broodlords starting to get chunked out a bit. We have 8 Thors to 14 Broodlords. Even those Vikings trying to help get a little bit of pepper in, but now the Broodling wall as the Hellbats have been pushed back, and oh, man, these Broodlords just having such a hard time getting close enough to them to actually kill them. So many of them down to low health, really just 1 or 2 shots away from these Thors. And the thing about Thors, when they're in that single target mode, it's a hit scan. There's no projectile. They hit instantly, much like a Marine, so they actually can't overkill. It's one of the reasons why that splash attack is not considered better in a situation like this. 7 Thors he's building at once. That's where the bait goes.
That top right-hand side being completely invaded by Serral. He's making it his here. Every single base up there being taken. HeRoMaRinE not ever sending anything. I think he's starting to think that maybe this was taken. He must have a look. There are some forces there on the ground with roaches. Serral kind of thought ahead of this. Oh my God, he's even going to get a full surround on these units.
Oh, that's
HeRoMaRinE finally finds this, but Serral is ready. He lives in the future. He knew this was coming.
Huge mistake. I mean, in this situation, every single unit, you want to force a big fight with everything. Pulling the Zerg apart is going to be very hard. Your Thors are very slow, so are the Broodlords. The Zerg player, Serral, we expect him to be on top of keeping track of where HeRoMaRiNE's army goes. And as long as he knows that, he can try to reposition his own army. As you see those mules in the bottom left. That bottom left expansion was really big for HeRoMaRiNE. I would have liked to see him try and switch in some other form of text. Probably the only thing that I would have asked for in this game. He's still, in the right circumstances, could win this fight. Both of these armies are insanely powerful, but as I said, he's got enough Broodlords to one-shot those Thors, so it's so difficult to take these little edge trades.
No, it keeps happening. That's the 3rd one that died without HeRoMaRiNE being able to do anything about these Broodlords. 4th one,
that's
it's
really
just going to keep on happening. He needs to evacuate this area.
Broodlords do a fun thing where as they rev up their attack animation, sometimes you can actually launch them from about 11-ish range, 10.5, at which point the Thors are no longer able to get the first volley off since they can't actually see them. And in this situation...
Okay, HeRoMaRiNE might be out of patience. He's almost stepping on creep here. And Serral will keep on kiting away against these Thors and launching as many broodlings as he can with the safety of the Infestors being right behind us. It's going to burn down here. And HeRoMaRiNE spent his entire bank here, 115 army supply to 142. He might be running out of patience. He's stepping on creep. He's going for it. One last final attempt.
There's a couple neuroparasites onto the Thors. The siege tanks are going to be able to kill one of those Infestors. He hits the second one, so able to keep control of his Thors, but still 16 Broodlords remain, Todd, and a blinding cloud is going to push back some of these ground forces. 7 Thors remain against a torrent of Zerg. Serral cannot be stopped. GG! A lot of really interesting choices. One of those games, it kind of leaves you scratching your head a little bit, Todd, because I think there was a lot of things that HeRoMaRiNE did really well there that we do not actually see a whole lot of players go for. And not to be too picky, but the only thing I'm going to say is I would have liked to see a little more variance in the support units. Siege tanks are rough to use in specifically that situation because you have to... Half the micro is the fight. The other half is just trying not to blow your own Thors and Hellbats up with siege tanks. So in this situation now, Serral leading 2-0, looking very confident about getting his way back. Where, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a quick break. When we return, we will resume this series of Serral versus HeRoMaRiNE. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Starcraft 2 World Championship Series, live here from Montreal. It is our final quarterfinal as we are rounding out who is going to be in the top 4. It has been a rough journey in this series for HeRoMaRinE against the Titan, the world champion Serral. Todd, it's not going to get any easier for him.
Yeah, I mean, he's playing amazing, but it's just not enough. I don't know what else to say, really. Like, that game number 1, I really thought he was in a position where he was finally going to be able to make Serral bleed, but not even that was enough. And in that last game, he was playing so well again, got up to a lot of Thors, like his macro never slipped. Not enough again. Like, what is he supposed to do better? It seems so hard. He's already doing so many things right.
I love what he's been doing, too. Like, he's made a lot of good choices, good calls, good transitions. But this man, this monster of a StarCraft player, has just been unstoppable. In the top left, in the blue, our Zerg player, the world champion, he is Serral! And his opponent in the bottom right, on the verge of defeat. We're needing 3 games in a row to come back here. Can he do it? He is HeRoMaRinE!
Cologne City in the house.
Cologne representing, I mean, one of the, what was that fun tidbit that came out? Serral, not only amazing at Stark, but apparently so well, I don't know what the word for has so much notoriety that notoriety. They gave him a plot of land in his hometown. Like, there you go.
Insane?
We want you to live here.
They do that for their athletes, apparently. I don't know if it's in Finland
awesome.
or in the region where he lives, and he was recognized as an athlete
or something.
Yeah.
That's pretty sick. That's super cool.
I mean,
Plot of land in Scranton would be nice, but I mean, it's not really worth anything, so I could probably just get it myself, honestly.
Rotterdam should get that. His nickname is literally the name of the city he's from.
That's some prime real estate right there.
All right, HeRoMaRinE, he needs to find some better answers to what Serral is able to bring to the table there. And I mean, like I said, I really think he played incredible, but it's just not quite enough. Maybe a few more like details, a few things done a little better, and he might be able to do it, but it's just so damn hard to kill someone like Serral. He just refuses to die at every turn.
And just maybe one final comment on that last game. Against the average Zerg player who hasn't really played versus Big Thor before or doesn't have too much experience against it.
Big Thor Nation.
Big Thor Nation, yeah. The, going for like 7 or 8 Broodlords is usually all you need, right? And then you round it out with other stuff. But Serral, it really, I really don't know how often he must have played against this style, but he clearly has experience against it to know that it's like, no, the counter to it is actually to just drown them in Broodlords. Like, get so many that the Thors have a hard time. Their AI, like, he got half the Broodlords down to like red health, but couldn't get the finishing shot. Like, with a little bit of micro there or like target fire, which obviously he's asking a lot because he's already microing the siege tanks to not kill his Thors. He could have blown up half of that army, or maybe he couldn't have because Serral was pulling them back at the right micro points because he just had, 20 Broodlords.
And he made sure to re-add Queens as well for some mold transfusions, keep those alive. And the execution with the flower as well, right? Because he was keeping all the Broodlords kind of together, so they would all shoot at once, was pretty damn good from Serral. Like, if he had done that just a little worse and started losing some of them, then 17 is like the sweet spot where you're one-shotting Thors, but if you fall down, like, let's say to 12, then suddenly it becomes a lot scarier to actually move in and try and kill those Thors, because you might be losing your Broodlords much quicker.
A big thing that comes up a lot is, or at least I ask a lot of someone who builds Thors, is like, in that situation, wouldn't it be better to put them in splash mode? The answer is usually no, because the splash mode has 1 less range, and then those Broodlords you're actually not shooting at them in that situation. And if you are, then you're even closer to the infestors, and things just get a lot uglier faster. The single target attack also shoots faster too, so that was then, and this is now. A fusion core is being built. We're going to have another battle cruiser opening.
No, Starbase in this game. He instead went for Lair.
Well, he must be thinking about getting aggro here, right? I would imagine he wants to go for a Nidus, which should work. Nidus is actually perfect against BC opening. It's one of the best builds.
I mean, he's up 2-0. It would be a nice timing here to try something like this, because even if he loses, he still would have 2 more maps to try and close out this best of 5 series. So we'll see in a second. 2 more gases being dropped down here by Serral.
I hope he does it. I would like to see it. It maybe if he doesn't want to risk like too much of an all-in, if he wants to guarantee the win, he could just be thinking about something else. But I don't see any reason why not to. Showing the Overseer like this instead of getting Overlord speed, though, that does say a lot to your opponent. These Hellions are just going to come in here and kill some of the Lings, the Queens, a little bit out of position. But how many drones is he going to be able to get for this endeavor? 3 so far, up to 7. That's not bad at all. That battlecruiser is still coming in and is on the way. By the way, he's also playing this really defensively behind it. Instead of getting more Hellions, he's switched into Marine tanks, so like a 1-1-1 style, because he's quite concerned about the possibility of a counterattack.
Yeah, he saw roaches coming out. Like right now, you're not sure whether the opponent wants to attack or if he's re-running back up. In this case, we see Serral adding on more drones, getting spores in each base. Clear reconstitution is starting now. And he's adding more Queens as well. 3 of them, even.
Yeah, maybe he's thinking about just doing like a big march across the map. Like, look at where the creep is being spread, right? We've got it going straight down the middle. Obviously, a Zerg player would want to spread creep straight down the middle, but to focus on it in the early game and continue to build multiple Queens while getting Roach speed says to me that he could be thinking about going for like a Queen Ravager Roach.
See a highway starting to shape up in the center.
Yep. So we'll see. I mean, you got to be super on top of that. He's continuing to add Roaches. And Roaches are usually not what you're thinking about building when your opponent has battle cruisers flying around, unless you want to attack. You want to drown the Terran player in Zerg blood. 4
Overlords on the way here for Serral. I think you may have called it. Let's see in a second if he actually starts drones or if he's just going to be attacking units here in the form of those Roaches. So many Queens are already there, ready to defend against the 1 battle cruiser. And the creep will progress forward.
Okay. He's going to use a Nidus to get it done. I thought it would be earlier, but this is also fine.
I mean, sometimes you get it really early and then he's spotted and the opponent, gets tanks and stuff. Yeah. And like now, it almost feels like the timing of a fast Nidus has already passed. So maybe HeRoMaRinE is not even thinking about that anymore. He's going into battle mech with Cyclones. And this is going to hit before all of these sweet upgrades finish, by the way. Yamato Cannon will not be on time. The double armory, I mean, is going to be completely useless. Like, you'd want to get as many units as possible. If we look at the production tab, like, he's getting 3 SCVs at a time. HeRoMaRinE is just not what he's going to need. 53 drones against 63 SCVs. Here we go. The first Nidus is going down, but there's already a tank in position to shoot that down.
That's a bit in your face. That's a bit on the nose. This second Nidus, though, by the natural, I love it. It's going to be able to get over towards the natural expansion. SCVs are on the run. Siege Tank trying to reposition. Here are the battle cruisers, but don't you worry about a thing, because them Queens are a-coming, unloading by the natural. All the anti-air that Serral could possibly need. Now, 3 tanks on the high ground should make it difficult to push into the main base, but Roaches being split off towards the 3rd. Serral's going to go for it. The absolute madman. 1 tank picked off, going for the 2nd one. A Banshee, an emergency Banshee coming out to try and help as the repair onto the battlecruisers is doing everything that it can. Definitely the strength of Terran defensively here. You have all of those workers, but he's losing so much. 23 SCVs have already fallen. The old Roaches are still on the 3rd base. Some Yamato's going to go into the Queens. He's going to load into the Nidus. Now, the Yamato actually got canceled there, so he can still use it, but dodging it with that Nidus network, absolutely beautiful play. 3 siege tanks still alive, though, so HeRoMaRinE doesn't want to die just yet, but as he lifts that command center, the creep is going to keep him from being able to retake it.
He lost a ton of SCVs, 29, but he's not too far behind walker count-wise. 47 SCVs to 56 drones. We got a Spire on the way behind this from Serral, and he was actually mining from quite a bit of gases, so he's going to have some decent gas count to work with. Still has this army left over. He killed the 3rd CC, or did that fly away?
It flew away. He went back into the main base, yeah. And this is quite nice. Serral using the Nidus Worm. You can use that for that load-unload micro to dodge Yamato. Now, if you do it in midair, you look like a god. Of course, if you just go into the Nidus while the BC is charging, the cooldown, it just refunds it so that Yamato never actually goes off, but takes the worm home and has to burn a scan to get rid of these creep tumors. So, all in all, I'd say a really successful attack. There are Cyclones in production. That's very important because some Zerg players would try to just get Corruptors and maybe try to force the end of this game, which in this scenario would probably, I'd say, would be possibly a mistake with Cyclone since he does have Magfield Accelerator. But this is going to kind of gravitate more towards a normal-ish game, except Serral in a phenomenal position.
Yeah, HeRoMaRinE, very decent hold, though, I would say. Like, ideally, you would have sent the SCVs from the third base into the natural, and then you would have preserved that many more of those guys. But already having the tank on the high ground helped a ton, and I feel like a lot of Terrans, they would have just died right there. But HeRoMaRinE stayed patient. He used tactical jump at the right time and repaired a lot of the units that he needed to save as well. So now he finds himself with some battlecruisers. These units in the center of the map, you're getting caught a little bit out of position. The crew spread, though, this whole time, it was progressing forward.
Yeah, well, Nidus Worms, much like the years, Todd, they start coming and they don't stop coming and they don't stop coming. We've got that one about to pop inside of the natural of HeRoMaRinE. It doesn't look like there's anything in it just yet, but has the option. Of course, you can. I mean, he may have just been hoping to force an overreaction or a beta teleport to the natural expand. Some roaches are going to unload. There we go. A bunch of Ravagers as well. And this economy going to be damaged again. That supply drop to depot. That's a huge thing to lose as another Nidus pops inside of the main. You're dealing with Niduses on multiple fronts as a Zerg. It is not fun, Todd. And those 3 Ravagers, if he gets close enough to that tank, he could actually pop that. And then these Cyclones are going to have a little bit of a difficult time. He does want to pick off that supply depot. It is an extremely high value target, and that is going to supply block HeRoMaRinE. So building more stuff gets hard. He bounces back over to the natural with that Nidus, the original one that was never even killed.
Yeah, I mean, these units, they load and unload so fast here. Serral is literally, he's blinking his army from one spot to another here with his Niduses. And he found himself quite a bit of damage there. 14 SCVs went down. He's now on 83 walkers with a Greater Spire on the way. Baning Nest being added on as well. And we're going to see Broodlords, I'm pretty sure, yet again. And HeRoMaRinE this time, his economy is not where he wants it to be. Kind of stuck on 3 bases. The main's already pretty much mined out. He might have to fly that main orbital. Actually, no, he already has a 4th one there. These changelings, they're sneaky little ones.
We've got a spy in our midst, Johan, and that is going to enable further Nidus Worms to pop up. Of course, the Corruptors now coming out of the field are going to complicate things. You need to be cautious that you're not getting killed. I think you don't have enough to 2-shot them, so 2 shots is the magic number, because then you can kill the BC while it's Yamatoing. So you'd be like, oh, you could trade like 1 or 2 Corruptors for a BC. Always a good deal. Comes into a fight over here against these Ravagers in the middle. Some Biles are going to get thrown down. And that Hellion Cyclone trying to put some pressure, get out on the map. But boom, boom, there it is. Another Nidus inside of the main base. The armories are actually going to be in jeopardy here. So denying more of those upgrades would be really nice. Another depot got supply dropped because he was supply blocked earlier. So you can actually use the Nidus network to break the lock onto the Cyclones too. Fun fact. That worm gets popped. But we have a little bit more of aggression coming out.
8 Broodlords being morphed now, and this is a very low upgrade game, by the way. Like, Serral now is the one getting a ton of upgrades, but HeRoMaRinE kind of stuck on 1-1 there. Again, his economy not where he wants it to be, but now he's starting to work on that 4th base. And he's going to get the bad news eventually about these Broodlords. Like, and in this game, he's not on the ton of Thors here just yet, like he was in the previous one.
He doesn't have money to do it either.
Yeah, it's just a lot of Cyclones, really,
well, now
which are more mobile, but every time he steps on creep, he gets chased off.
Yep. It's a delicate dance to try and do, because the Cyclone lock-on, once it's initiated, the range goes up to 14. So you'd think if you could lock onto the Broodlords, you'd be fine. But since you have to be within 7 range, almost every Broodlord is going to be able to shoot at those Cyclones. And the Cyclone only has 120 hit points. They die very quickly.
Ooh, he's getting chased. He's trying to go past those 2 tanks. They're like, shoot me, take me. And HeRoMaRinE is going on the left-hand side as well. I think he identified he couldn't defend if he just sat on his side of the map. So he tried to counterattack. He's trying to counterattack in multiple places at once, with the battlecruisers also going on the other side of the map here, really forcing Serral to go all the way back.
And now he's starting to Thor. So HeRoMaRinE is trying to force the potential of a base trade. Not that he could, I don't know that he could actually base trade in this situation, but he's pulling the whole Zerg army back, snipes that hatchery, and he is going to lose the battlecruisers since they did teleport into the base. But he cleans up these roaches on the left side. He had that expansion secured. And honestly, getting the Thors out is a really important moment right now, because I don't believe we ever had the investments into the infestors in the same way that we had in the previous game, right? No infestors on the map. I don't know that he has upgrades for them. So if he could get out 5 Thors versus 8 Broodlords. Now I could see something happening here, Todd, but it's not going to be easy, especially since, as you pointed out, he hasn't really been getting upgrades. The Broodlings are going to do a lot of damage with that +2 melee against
He's getting Vikings additionally to this, but instead of the Infestors that we saw last game, this time there is a whole lot of Corruptors in the air already for Serral, who's got Zerg Flare attacks already finishing.
It's going to take a long time for those Vikings to kill those Corruptors, assuming they even can. And in that time, the Broodlords will have happily torn him to pieces. As the Corruptors are going to go forward, they're trying to just bait any lock-ons or look for any air units. Now, the Vikings actually are going to get a free farm on one of these Broodlords because they went a little too far to the left. But now the Corruptors are here to say, all right, back off, bozo, and let my Broodlords blow up your third base. These Hellbats trying to transform, but the Banelings are going to blow them up. More reinforcements are arriving. The Cyclones going mano a mano against those Ravagers. Roaches, though, inside of the 4th base mineral line, ripping those SCVs to pieces. And the Vikings can't do anything. They're busy fighting these Corruptors. The Cyclones, there's so many Cyclones, though. All of the Corruptors are going to get picked off. 4 more in the backside are going to be, I don't know, necessarily enough to stop those Vikings from just right-clicking onto the Broodlords here.
Is moving back with some of his army as well. He really wants to punish those Broodlords. They're so far on the other side of the map here, literally sieging that one base. He wants not to let them escape here. He needs to punish this hard and then maybe go for the counter-attack. But Lynx coming from behind here to try and buy some time. The Broodlords finally are going to be sniped, but Serral still with a massive supply advantage, especially in walkers, 80 to 39 now.
I like this. Serral actually decided not to use the Corruptors to fight. He's like, okay, I'm just going to use those Lings, bait him a little bit. I want to kill this command center. He set his sights on a juicy prize. HeRoMaRinE has to. There's nothing else left behind this for him. He's at 120 supply, but moving with those Cyclones on to creep against Banelings with speed upgrades is going to be really difficult. There's not a lot of Hellions here to support against a Lane Flood behind it either. And at 80 drones, Serral is going to go 100 supply above. GG! 3-0 victory for the world champion over Big Gabe in stellar, dominating, terrifying fashion. There is a reason why Serral has terrorized the WCS circuit for 2 years in a row. Absolutely amazing play. So few mistakes could deal with everything, almost feeling effortlessly, Todd. I can't wait to hear what he's got to say as we're ready to go to the main stage and hear him with Cloakin.
Thanks so much, Nathanius. That's right, I'm here with Serral. Serral, congratulations, 3-0 victory here. How do you feel? Was that what you were expecting out of HeRoMaRinE? From our perspective, those are some hard-fought games. He hung in there with you. Would love to get your thoughts, though.
Yeah, I know HeRoMaRinE is very good, so I wasn't expecting a clean sweep, but that happened. And the first game and the second game were very tough. Could have went 8 away pretty easily, but somehow managed to clutch them back. But yeah, I mean, I think it could have been 3-2 very easily, but this time this way.
Awesome. Now, look, we hear a lot about your performance, your dominance across not only last year, but this year. I want to hear a little bit from you. Does that present an abnormal amount of pressure? Do you feel a lot of expectation on your performance, not only in tournaments like this, but also on the upcoming global stage?
Not too much, honestly. I don't get any extra pressure, but obviously I want to do well and at least play my best level there. So I guess that's obviously a little pressure, but not too much from outside for sure.
Got it. So you head to the semis. You're going to be facing up against Neeb, an American Protoss. Do you have any thoughts on that matchup?
I would say Neeb's always been the hardest one for me, and he will probably be for a long time, so it's going to be very hard. I won him the last time we played, but then again, even those claims are very close, so I think it can go either way, but I'm still decently confident, I would say.
Awesome. All right, ladies and gentlemen, one more round of applause here for Serral as he moves on to the semifinals. Congratulations. We're back to you, Kalaris.
That's right, and a cataclysmic surprise to absolutely no one. Serral goes through into the round of 4 once again. Can somebody please explain to me how he didn't lose that first game? What was that?
Yeah, I don't have the answers for you there, James. You know, it's an unsolvable Rubik's Cube. The ability to come back from behind, to hang on when anyone else would crumble, that's Serral's magic specialty. No one knows how he does it.
it really felt that he had nothing at one point on Winter's Gate.
Yeah.
He just had absolutely nothing. And I was praising Gabe so much. And obviously, we're going to praise Serral, and we always do because we think he's amazing. But Big Gabe, his control on Winter's Gate, the splits on creep over and over and over again. I was like, man, Gabe is on fire. He showed it yesterday as well against Showtime. He had fantastic micro. Now, again, he really was playing his heart out. At one point, I was like, I think he's got it. Like, he doesn't have much economy, but he's got so much army supply. It was like 100 against 20 or something at one point. Like, I don't know, man. It's amazing stuff to watch. Like, it's ridiculous. There's no right word to really put this. Okay, I think I just muted myself. I got a little excited there, James.
He's like, whoa.
I don't know, man. There is not the right word to describe how good Serral is at StarCraft.
No, indeed. I mean, towards the final moments of that series, game number 3, Serral may have well been carrying around the banner of the flayed man, because that was a skinning of HeRoMaRinE up towards some of the final moments of all of that.
Yeah, I mean, it drains you when you're playing those games that HeRoMaRinE did in the last one, and it felt like he was a little bit slower to respond by that point. The Nidus Worms were getting up unnoticed, and that's what happens when you play a guy who just won't go down and you keep punching him and he keeps getting back up and eating your punches. It's insane.
I think like a great compliment for StarCraft as well is a while ago when we saw Zerg versus Mac, it was like, okay, Nidus goes up, and then the turns were like, how are we supposed to find the Nidus? And then like the Swarmers come out, a wave of locusts, and it really felt that the game was played in like phases of like 30, 40 seconds, right? And this Acropolis game as well, it just felt that Gabe was once again playing really good. Nidus, bam, finds it immediately, It was really cool, action-packed, dynamic. Like, I mean, this is everything that StarCraft should be, I think. Those first 2 games, absolutely amazing. And even that final game, like normally it's like a Nidus attack is like, can he break the front? And it's like top, bottom, transitioning at home, expanding at home. It's like amazing stuff to see. Both of them are super good, but yeah, Serral's unreal.
Completely agree. Big kudos to Big Gabe, but unfortunately he will fall down. Let's take a look at the bracket, of course, here as we have our 4 players confirmed in the top 4. And what a 4 it is. Special Reina, Neeb versus Serral. All of this could be grand finals material, and yet we're here in the round of 4, Pig. What a treat we've got left to go here today.
I think there's no complainers looking at that bracket. I mean, you've got an awesome Terran versus Zerg up first, an awesome Zerg versus Protoss. 2 of the players who we say are the, they're the top 2 guys behind Raynor and Serral right now, facing off against them in the semifinals. I'm excited to see where it goes, and fingers crossed we can see Neeb or Special in the finals, because I just want to see that mix up. I want to see a new name up in that grand final.
What do you think, Roddy? You think that might occur, or you think we're going to see maybe the normal names up there?
I mean, all the players that are left are absolutely amazing. I have a little fun fact for you, James, because I know you like fun facts.
I love fun facts.
Like, Serral has pretty much broken every single record that he could obviously break. But there is one record that Neeb still holds, and that is winning a WCS circuit event with dropping the least amount of maps. In Montreal 2 years ago, I think Neeb went 17-2. Correct me if I'm wrong. Like, maybe I'm up, one down, but I think he won. I think he lost only 2 maps in the entire tournament. And Serral has obviously won a lot of WCS events ever since, but he's always dropped at least, I think, 3 or most often 4 or even 5 maps. Yeah, absolutely. So Neeb still has that one record, but in this tournament right now, Serral is a perfect 10-0 in maps. So.
Ooh,
wow.
Well, I think it's a tall order to continue doing so against the caliber of opponents. We shall see. Thank you very much, gentlemen, here, as we are going to go to a short break here for WCS Fall. Montreal's been greeting us lovely with us. Some great bagels. We're going to see you in just a few moments here. More from WCS Fall, StarCraft.